Good morning. My name is Zoe Allen, and the title of my project is Metro Detroit Urban Sprawl. Urban sprawl? What is urban sprawl, you might ask? I know I did. Urban sprawl describes the expansion of human populations away from the central urban areas like Detroit, Chicago, or New York into low-density and usually car-dependent communities like Troy, Birmingham, or Southfield. There are several factors that contributed to the Metro Detroit urban sprawl. I will briefly discuss 5 of them. 1. Reliance on a single industry. 2. Racial tension. 3. Shortcomings of leadership. 4. Lack of an efficient transit system. And 5. The impact of poverty. The expansion of the auto industry nearly a century ago fueled a growth spurt that made Detroit the 4th largest city in the country. By 1950, the population in Detroit peaked almost to 2 million as people moved to Detroit to work at the big 3 automotive companies. It was at the height of this prosperity that the manufacturers began to restructure, and the risk of the city's reliance on a single industry became apparent. According to Thomas J. Scrooge's essay, Motor City, The Story of Detroit. First, there was decentralization. Strikes inspired by union negotiations and a refusal by whites and blacks to work side by side were halting progress. The industry then experimented with automation, replacing assembly line jobs with machinery. Tens of thousands of jobs were lost. The industry shrank even more during the energy crisis in the 1970s and the economic recession in the 1980s, and foreign competition caused profits to plummet. Though other cities experienced their own booms and busts, Detroit suffered most because it didn't diversify. When Southern blacks began moving to Detroit in search of work at the automobile factories, as migration of blacks who swept into Detroit became especially intense. Middle-class whites began moving to newly built suburbs. The violent 1967 riots turned the stream into a torrent. During the 1950s, the city lost 363,000 white residents, while it gained 182,000 black residents. In the 1950s, the population was 16% black, and by the time the 1967 riot, it had grown to a third. Today, about 82% of the population is black. It's really hard to overstate how deep the fear was on both sides of the color line, Mr. Boyle said. And after the riots, Detroit failed to bounce back, Mr. Boyle said. Businesses followed their customers. Thousands of homes were abandoned as the city population plunged. Shortcomings of leadership. The financial crisis facing Detroit was decades in the making, caused in part by a trail of missteps, suspected corruption that deep-rooted structural problems, lack of an efficient transit system. In the hometown of the auto industry, public policies encouraged a car culture, with more money being invested in building highways rather than a public transportation system. Efforts like Dwight D. Eisenhower's Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956 helped fuel the urban sprawl. And the city's streetcar system was dismantled the same year. 36% of the city's population is below the poverty level, and by 2010, the residential vacancy rate was 27.8%. With fewer people paying taxes, the city has starved financially and has struggled to maintain social services. Swaths of the city are in total darkness because of non-functioning streetlights. And the average police response time, including top priority calls, is 58 minutes, according to a report by the emergency manager.